Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and notes mashup video today, starting with Undisputed. Well, hopefully we'll get it. But the WBA is putting in a deadline to receive contracts for the fight. So remembering Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk, the scheduled date, if they can actually get everything done, is April the 29th. At this point, we're 2/3 the way through March, no signed deal. Oleksandr Usyk and his team have been blaming Tyson Fury, saying Fury will not sign the fight. Although both fighters are in camp, both are training, and we've been waiting to see what would happen. But the WBA taking matters into its own hands, as it did with the Undisputed debacle back in 2018. Gilberto Mendoza on his social media saying Usyk v Fury update, WBA boxing deadline to receive signed bout contracts is April 1st. Otherwise, the Dubois mandatory negotiations will be ordered. And the WBA proved back in 2018 it doesn't mess around. So if they don't hand in what they need to hand in, the WBA will move on, and that would be a shame, and the fans would be poorer for it. But Frank Warren, he is saying on his social media, not necessarily in response to Mendoza, but he does say Arsenal 8 points clear, even bigger news to come. And he's been saying for the past couple of weeks, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get this fight done. And given he's on the hook for Wembley Stadium, I'm sure there'd be some sort of pull-out fee if he cancelled. He will want to get this one done. But they've left it pretty late in the day. But let's not dwell on that because it's Undisputed. We'll see if it happens. I'm hoping so. But, it is. We've been here before. We'll see. Anthony Joshua's undercard has been filled out. An announcement from Matchroom and the co-feature Fabio Wardley versus Michael Polite-Coffie. So it was quite an interesting press release because very threadbare, just sort of listed the different fighters. Usually you might get some sort of quotes, all that sort of stuff. Not so in this one. So Fabio Wardley, who's undefeated at this point, he holds the British title. They've been moving him along at a certain rate. Michael Polite-Coffie, one of the better fighters that he's faced. But coming into this one, Michael Polite-Coffie does not have form. So see here on screen, you've got Coffie, his box rec. He's actually coming off 3 losses in the past 4 fights. 2 to Jonathan Rice and 1 more recently against Gergen Hovhannisyan. And perhaps with that Hovhannisyan win, they've decided that Michael Polite-Coffie is right for the picking. And I was wondering about his situation. He must have been either released from PBC or his deal was up and they did not renew it. Or perhaps he's just seeking better opportunities elsewhere. Remembering PBC fighters have not been fighting a lot recently. 1 time a year seems to be about average, 2 if you're very lucky. But Wardley against a guy in Coffie who's a puncher, there's some interest there, but Wardley, based on form, should win this one. There was a time just a few years ago where Michael Polite-Coffie was riding high. He had a couple of really good wins on the bounce, and he was 13-0, or 12-0, I should say, and now he's 13-3. So he's really been downhill. And for that Hovhannisyan fight, he was well out of shape as well. So that was towards the end of 2022. He was 297 pounds. Now, that's not going to work. And if it's short notice and he's coming in and he hasn't really been keeping himself in condition, who knows what we're going to get on the night. Maybe he'll crack the 300. We'll have to see. But Wardley, obviously the favourite. Bit weird that there's no quotes or anything like that, but is what it is. Moving on, so a potential future opponent for Fabio Wardley is Solomon Dakers. Well, at least according to Eddie Hearn, who is the Matchroom promoter. He promotes Solomon Dakers, and Fabio Wardley fights on DAZN. He's managed by Dillian White. I'm not sure of their promotional arrangements, if it's a long-term deal with Wardley. But after Dakers' win against Rob Ismay for the English title, something Wardley once held, it is a situation where Eddie Hearn said he would like to see them fight in maybe 2 or 3 fights' time. So that's kind of interesting because at the moment, Solomon Dakers just 6-0, Fabio Wardley well further along, about 15-0. And let's face it, the opposition that Dacres is facing is far lower at this point. He'd have to be taking a few steps up the ladder to really sort of get to the same sort of level that Wardley's been facing in his last couple of fights. Not to say it can't happen, but 2 or 3 fights, it feels a little optimistic. But just getting to that fight and the post-fight comments after Dacres stopped a sort of hapless Ismay in a couple of rounds, Eddie Hearn actually talked up the performance and said Dacres really needed that. It really needed to show something. But, I mean, let's just pump the brakes here for a second. You had a guy who was fighting Dacres for the English title who was basically handpicked effectively, had done nothing at heavyweight, let alone at cruiserweight when he was down there. I'm not sure what the measuring stick is here because Ismay's just not very good. So, I mean, it might look a little smoke and mirrors, at least to me. But this is not the sort of fight, because Eddie Hearn and Dacres talked about Dacres does have power, but this wasn't the fight to sort of prove that either way. But he stopped Ismay in a couple of rounds, and the stoppage itself was probably, it looked a little bit premature. It would have ultimately come, I think, in the next 5 or 10 seconds after it. But it was a case that Dacres gets the stoppage, advances to 6 wins with 2 by knockout. But as I say, not the fight to prove that you've got power, because who was Rob Ismay before this fight? In the heavyweight division, he'd done nothing to no one. Moving on, so you've got Lucas Browne reflecting on his loss to Jarrell Big Pharmacy Miller. So we'll hear what Browne has to say and then move on to Miller.
How's everyone doing? Lucas Big Daddy Browne here. What a fight. I actually, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do think that boxers and all fighters have something wrong with them, but I knew this already. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. I like the fact that 2 big boys just come to bang. Unfortunately, one of the big boys had 26 kilos on me, so you've got these lightweight fighters that are saying, oh, he's a kilo heavier. Well, try 26. Full credit to Big Baby Miller. He's got a great gas tank. He kept coming forward. I won a few rounds. He won a few rounds, and then I got done. So it is what it is. One thing that I've always said, I've got 2 to 3 fights left. I want to go out with a bang. I believe that was a nice, good bang. But I want to go out in nice, good, competitive fights and make some money. That was exactly what I wanted. I want a nice, good fight. He's an unreal fighter. He will go great things. He will do great things. He will go far. And it was a good competitive fight. I've again travelled to another country, been very welcomed in the other country, treated very well, travelled, and wow, like what a job. What a job to have. So for 12 or whatever years, I've travelled the world, fought, seen people, met people, been taken care of, etc. What a great job. So I have had a few of those people say, oh, you should give it up, you should retire. Well, I am on the end of my career. I did start extremely late, remember that. So I'm on the end of my career. I've got 2 to 3 fights left. I want some competitive fights, and then I want to be able to give it up and walk into the sunset knowing that I've given my all when I gave what I needed to give. So I believe last night I went out on my shield, which is always a good thing. I'm never going to sort of just give up. I've given up. So I trained hard. I came in well. He's just, 26 kilos makes a big difference when they're pounding on you. So it is what it is. No excuses. There's no any sort of excuses. It was a great fight. It was a good fight. He won. End of story. So on to the next for me. I fly home tonight. So, bit of marking up and bruising as always, but like give me three days, all this will be gone, and you'll see. I'll do another video in 3 days, and you'll see that all this will be gone. But it is what it is. Thank you very much for the support. I hope everyone enjoyed the fight, and there'll be a few more to come.
And Miller, who maintained his unbeaten record, he was actually bragging online that no bumps, no cuts, no bruises. Although he was looking a little marked up under one of his eyes during the fight, so he says here, no cheeseburgers on the flight. Well, I mean, he probably could skip a few at 332 pounds, I would have thought. And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video, so this was a fight I did watch over the weekend, Alexis Barriere versus Zamig Artakeshiev, and a really unfortunate sort of fight. So you've got Alexis Barriere, who was coming into this unbeaten. I think it was 8-0. He just absolutely waxed Adam Braidwood in his previous fight, but for some reason, very cautious, unwilling to really pull the trigger. There was only a few rounds towards the end where he started to get a bit more aggressive against the guy who looked like a blown up light heavyweight, who basically was just sort of doing foot feints and, you know, just sort of throwing his sort of hand out there, kind of almost like as a measuring stick, but not really looking to throw anything. So Barriere very defensive, and letting this guy gain a bit of confidence for no good reason, because he just wasn't very good, wasn't looking to really throw punches, and when he did, he had nothing on them. So it went all 8 rounds, and it was a bizarre performance from Alexis Barriere. Very disappointing. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.